Prince Edward has always been one of the royal family's quieter members, a man who values tradition and avoids controversy. In stark contrast, Princess Diana captured global attention with her openness and ability to connect with people on an emotional level. Their different approaches have come to define their roles within the monarchy. However, Edward's recent reflections have cast a new light on their relationship. How did Diana's groundbreaking actions influence Edward's steadfast dedication to royal tradition, and what do his revelations tell us about the monarchy's response to one of its most transformative figures? For years, there has been a wall of silence around the royal family, which has maintained its good name through duty and care. That custom was broken when Diana joined the family. The world was amazed by her as a young wife to Prince Charles, but problems were worsening behind the palace walls. Many people thought Diana was a breath of fresh air, but her way of living as a princess and her well-known personal struggles made the institution uneasy. The cracks were visible to everyone, including Edward, who was often overshadowed by his more famous brothers but had a unique perspective on the unfolding events. In 1981, when Diana became a member of the royal family, Edward was still carving out his own path. Unlike his brothers, Charles and Andrew, Edward did not immediately join the military. Instead, he pursued creative interests, including a brief stint as a stage manager. As the Queen's youngest son, Edward occupied a unique position. He was close enough to observe the inner workings of the family but often relegated to the background. Despite his limited time in the public eye, Edward held strong feelings about Diana, shaped by the contrasting ideals they represented. Diana sought to connect with people in a genuine and honest way, often defying royal protocol. She hugged children with AIDS, walked through minefields, and openly discussed her personal struggles. Edward, in contrast, valued the monarchy's security and order, which he saw as its foundation. Their differences were more than an attitude clash, they reflected fundamentally opposing views. Edward believed in upholding respect for the institution of monarchy and avoiding actions that could undermine it. While Diana's approach resonated with the public, it also created tension within the family. As these differences became more apparent, Edward reportedly grew more skeptical of Diana. Although there were no major confrontations between Edward and Diana, underlying tensions existed in their relationship. Some royal staff have suggested that Edward did not hold Diana in the same regard as many others did. He perceived some of her actions as self-serving, suggesting she cared more about public recognition than the collective well-being of the family. Whether this view was accurate or not, it highlights the distinct ways Edward and Diana approached their roles within the monarchy, underscoring the broader contrasts between tradition and transformation within the royal family. Even though there was tension between them, Diana and Edward did have moments when they got along. Diana, though not as talkative as Edward, had a knack for bringing attention to problems others might have overlooked, which Edward appreciated. However, these instances of harmony were overshadowed by larger issues within the family. The marriage between Diana and Charles was falling apart, and as news of their troubles spread, it created difficulties for everyone, including Edward. During Diana's early years as a royal, Edward was still navigating his role within the family. He had to balance his official duties with his desire to carve out a life of his own. His brief stint with ARD Productions was seen as an attempt to step out of the royal spotlight, though it came with its challenges. The contrast between Diana's meteoric rise to fame and Edward's quieter, more experimental path made their relationship intriguing. Diana symbolized change and understanding, while Edward represented tradition and continuity. This dynamic became even more apparent over the years, especially in the way they interacted with the public. Diana's emotional openness, such as her famous Panorama interview, broke new ground, while Edward adhered to his promise of privacy, avoiding attention whenever possible, even when his actions benefited others. These differing approaches widened the gap between their ideas of what it meant to be royal. Despite their complicated relationship, it is important to note that Edward was not directly involved in many of Diana's public controversies. His position within the family allowed him a unique perspective, observing the chaos without being fully immersed in it. His more recent comments about Diana suggest that their time apart did not lessen his strong feelings about her impact on the monarchy. Reflecting on Edward's royal duties, one might see how he viewed Diana's struggles. Unlike some of his brothers, Edward has largely avoided major scandals throughout his life. His quiet devotion to the monarchy and his family has been respected, even if it hasn't garnered widespread public adoration. This difference may explain why Edward's remarks about Diana are so striking. For someone who typically avoids controversy, speaking out about such a polarizing figure hints at a deeper story. It's important to remember that Diana was not solely responsible for the issues within the royal family. A complex web of obligations, relationships, and unspoken rules shaped every interaction and influenced the family dynamics. As one of the quieter members of the family, Edward may not have been at the center of these events, but what he observed profoundly shaped his perspective. Watching the storm surrounding Diana, rather than being a direct part of it, gave him a unique insight into a time of brilliance and turmoil. As Diana's fame grew, it seemed to cast a shadow over other members of the royal family, leaving a lasting impression on Edward and his view of that era. Edward, like Diana, had a unique place within the royal family dynamic. People praised Diana for her unmatched connection with the public, a charm that often led to unintended comparisons with Edward. While Diana's openness made her the darling of newspapers and magazines, Edward's quiet demeanor stood in stark contrast. He preferred to work behind the scenes with little attention, valuing tradition and privacy. Diana's openness may have seemed at odds with the monarchy's ideals of discretion and stability, particularly to someone like Edward. By the mid-1980s, cracks in Diana's relationship with Prince Charles became increasingly evident, exposing tensions within the royal family. For Edward, who adhered to a strict code of loyalty, the public airing of private issues would have been particularly difficult. Diana's choice to discuss her struggles in public posed not only a personal challenge but also a public threat to the core values of royal life. Reports suggest that Edward was skeptical of Diana's approach. He believed in the monarchy's enduring strength as a symbol of stability, maintained through resilience and discretion. Diana's vulnerability and openness resonated with the public, but for some, it represented a challenge to the monarchy's traditions. The royal family had weathered wars, scandals, and societal changes by maintaining a composed front. Diana's decision to share her story through books and interviews likely felt like a breach of this unspoken agreement. Despite these differences, Edward and Diana did not share a hostile relationship. Instead, their interactions highlighted their contrasting personalities and goals. Diana was kind, caring, and expressive, while Edward was quiet, reflective, and private. These differences shaped their relationship, creating moments of mutual understanding as well as periods of discord. As Diana's struggles with the royal family grew more public, the media's focus on her intensified. Every aspect of her life became a spectacle, with the royal family also drawn into the public scrutiny. For Edward, who valued privacy, this level of exposure would have been shocking. While Diana bore the brunt of media attention, Edward had his own challenges with the press. When he founded Ardent Productions, a television production company, he faced criticism and ridicule for venturing into an unconventional field for a royal. Although his experiences were not as severe as Diana's, they likely gave him some insight into her struggles. Even if Edward didn't agree with Diana's methods, he might have empathized with her predicament. By the early 1990s, the royal family faced numerous challenges, many centered around Diana's increasingly public difficulties. Her separation from Prince Charles in 1992 marked a turning point, altering public perceptions of the monarchy. For Edward, this was a particularly difficult period. As a loyal son of the Queen, his priority was to support the institution, but he couldn't escape the personal pain and conflicts affecting the family. Edward's adherence to tradition and custom remained steadfast during this time, reflecting his deep commitment to the monarchy's enduring values amidst the upheaval. Some family members, like Diana, found royal life restrictive, but Edward was determined to uphold its ideals. This was not always a rejection of change, rather, it reflected a deep trust in the value of stability during chaotic times. Edward's quiet presence served as a reminder of the monarchy's core values. Many stories about Edward and Diana highlight their differences, yet it is also crucial to consider how their lives overlapped. In their own distinct ways, both faced challenges in finding their place within the royal family. Diana's journey was marked by her emotional openness and determination to question the status quo, while Edward's was quieter, characterized by a resolve to establish his role without causing disruption. These parallel yet distinct paths reveal the complexity of their connection. Even as Diana's life grew increasingly complicated, Edward remained the calm and collected figure he had always been. He avoided making public statements or engaging in the kind of dramatic revelations that came to define much of Diana's later years. However, his quiet demeanor did not indicate indifference. Edward's actions during this period demonstrated his deep concern for the monarchy's future. Whether through his charitable work, unwavering support for his parents, or quiet participation in public events, Edward worked tirelessly to preserve the monarchy's history. Reflecting on their relationship, it becomes clear that the roles they played were as influential as their personalities. Diana undeniably modernized the royal family, challenging customs and reshaping its image, while Edward maintained a steady devotion to tradition, ensuring that the monarchy retained its core identity amidst these changes. The complexities of their relationship cannot be understood without acknowledging the pressures they both faced. Diana struggled with personal challenges under intense public scrutiny, while Edward sought to balance adherence to royal customs with the demands of a rapidly changing world. Their interactions were shaped by these shared yet contrasting experiences, leaving a legacy that continues to influence perceptions of the royal family. During the 1990s, the royal family faced unprecedented public attention, with Princess Diana emerging as its most prominent and polarizing figure. Her candidness and emotional revelations captivated the public but also highlighted the growing tensions within the family. For Edward, this era was marked by increasing pressure as he navigated his role in a family seemingly fracturing under the strain of public and personal challenges. Diana's tumultuous public life and eventual tragedy had a lasting impact on the monarchy. Although Edward remained less visible during this period, he was deeply affected by these events. Diana's famous 1995 Panorama interview, where she remarked, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," was a turning point. It was both a personal statement and a critique of the royal family's dynamics. For Edward, who valued privacy and propriety, such a public airing of grievances would have been profoundly unsettling, as it contradicted everything the royal family stood for. Throughout this turbulent time, Edward's steadfast support for the Queen underscored his role as a stabilizing force within the family, even as the institution faced unprecedented challenges. He was the youngest boy, so he had a very close relationship with his mother, sharing her dedication to upholding the institution. After Diana's revelations, the monarchy found itself in a tough spot, as people began questioning its relevance and its ability to adapt to modern needs. Along with his brothers, Edward faced the challenge of navigating the tricky middle ground between tradition and change. While Diana chose to address these challenges publicly, Edward preferred a quieter approach. This difference in method highlighted the fundamental distinction between Edward and Diana. Diana believed in being honest about her struggles, while Edward prioritized secrecy to protect the family's reputation. It wasn't that Edward was indifferent to Diana's pain, in fact, he likely understood the pressures she faced better than most. However, his focus on preserving the monarchy made him view openness with the public as a potential threat rather than a solution. By the late 1990s, Diana and Prince Charles were no longer living together and had officially separated. The royal family faced mounting difficulties as public support remained firmly with Diana, even as internal family tensions persisted. Edward, who had largely stayed out of the spotlight, began to feel increasing pressure to step up as a supporter of the throne. Despite the turmoil, Edward managed to maintain a level of detachment that allowed him to observe the most contentious battles without directly involving himself. The shocking news of Diana's death in 1997 left the world in mourning. For the royal family, it was not only a personal loss but also a reputational crisis. In the immediate aftermath, the monarchy faced severe criticism for appearing cold and unresponsive to the public's grief. This period was particularly challenging for Edward. Though he deeply respected the Queen, he witnessed the unprecedented backlash she faced, including an influx of hate mail which highlighted the institution's vulnerability. Amidst the chaos, Edward's role gained quiet importance. While other family members, like Prince Charles and the young princes William and Harry, received most of the public's attention, Edward worked behind the scenes to maintain calm. His ability to remain composed and focused on the family's long-term goals proved crucial during these turbulent times. His steadfast loyalty, though often unnoticed, became invaluable as the royal family regrouped and reflected on the lessons of Diana's life and death. In the years that followed, the royal family recognized the need to adapt to a rapidly changing society. For Edward, this involved finding ways to modernize the monarchy without compromising its core values. This balance was evident in his work with non-profits and his dedication to youth development programs. While Diana had been a pioneer in bringing the royal family closer to the public, Edward quietly reinforced the importance of tradition through less visible efforts. However, the shadow of Diana's death loomed over the royal family. Her life and passing prompted introspection about how the monarchy engaged with the public and worked together as a family. Edward often reflected on Diana's impact, whether or not he agreed with her approach, and it was clear that her influence had permanently altered the royal family's dynamics. Over time, Edward's public role became more defined, even if it remained understated. His contributions to the crown, though less conspicuous, were no less significant. His unwavering devotion to his parents, particularly his father, Prince Philip, exemplified his steady approach to addressing the family's challenges. In many ways, Edward's stability acted as a counterbalance to the dramatic shifts brought about by Diana's life and legacy. His quiet service and loyalty became a cornerstone for the monarchy as it sought to reconcile tradition with the demands of a changing world. Diana pushed the government to confront its weaknesses, while Edward's primary goal was to ensure the institution remained strong. The issues in Edward's friendship with Diana reflected the broader challenges faced by the royal family during her time. Diana was more open about her feelings regarding royal life, whereas Edward maintained a more private demeanor. This contrast highlighted how royalty continues to navigate the tensions between tradition and modernity. Edward's view of Diana was occasionally harsh, but it was shaped by his deep sense of duty and loyalty to the monarchy. Diana's influence remains palpable in the royal family, even though she passed away many years ago. For Edward, her lasting legacy is a poignant reminder of the difficult times they endured during one of the monarchy's most turbulent eras. His sparse reflections on that period still provide valuable insight into how the family managed both joyous and challenging moments. The relationship between Edward, Diana, and other members of the royal family underscored the difficulty of balancing personal values with public expectations. Edward's lack of overt communication over the years does not necessarily indicate a lack of clarity, rather, it suggests a desire to uphold cherished traditions while quietly contributing to the monarchy's long-term stability. After Diana's tragic death, Prince Edward and the rest of the royal family spent considerable time reflecting on their lives. The loss of the people's princess left a profound void in both public life and the royal family's private world. Diana's legacy modernized the monarchy's relationship with the public but also cast a long shadow over those who remained, including Edward. For someone as composed and reserved as he was, this period presented both challenges and opportunities for introspection about his role in the institution that Diana had irrevocably transformed. As the government sought to improve its public image, Edward's understated presence became increasingly significant. His older brother, Charles, had to reconcile his past with Diana and prepare to ascend the throne, but Edward's calm demeanor provided a stabilizing influence. His quiet dedication to royal service was less visible but equally vital. While the world continued to examine Diana's profound impact on the monarchy, Edward found purpose in focusing on family tradition and service. His work during this period demonstrated his commitment to maintaining the institution while gradually embracing small but meaningful changes. He devoted more time and energy to causes close to his heart, such as the Duke of Edinburgh's award program, founded by his father, Prince Philip. This initiative, aimed at empowering young people through personal development and community service, exemplified Edward's approach, quiet, steady, and focused on long-term outcomes. In contrast, Diana's impact was transformative and frequently shaped public perceptions of the royal family. Her death marked a turning point, altering the monarchy's connection with the people and prompting ongoing discussions about its future. For Edward, navigating this new reality involved living in a world where Diana's name was both celebrated and critiqued. Despite the challenges, Edward's focus on tradition and service provided him with a sense of purpose. His understated contributions played a crucial role in sustaining the monarchy's stability while adapting to a changing world. Even though he didn't talk about her much in public, Edward's behavior showed that he was aware of Diana's influence while also striving to uphold the traditions she often questioned. This balancing act had many complicated aspects, rooted in Edward's loyalty to his family and the organization. While he didn't always agree with how people perceived Diana, his approach reflected his effort to navigate the delicate intersection between tradition and change. People praised Edward for his ability to connect emotionally, but his strict adherence to royal protocol sometimes seemed out of step with the expectations of a modern government. Nevertheless, his steadfast commitment highlighted the importance of tradition in a rapidly changing world. Edward and Diana's relationship, though rarely discussed, underscored the challenges faced by the royal family at the time. Their contrasting ways of handling public life illustrated the tension between custom and modernity, a dynamic that continues to influence the monarchy today. Diana's openness and willingness to confront flaws within the institution stood in contrast to Edward's quiet demeanor, which emphasized its enduring strengths. Over time, Edward's role evolved in ways that were both meaningful and beneficial to the family. His marriage to Sophie, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, became a model of stability in a family often embroiled in scandals. Together, they raised their children, Lady Louise and James, Earl of Wessex, in a manner that prioritized privacy and normalcy, a stark departure from the intense media scrutiny that Diana and her sons endured. This approach reflected Edward's desire to maintain perspective and shield his family from unnecessary attention. As time passed, Edward's unwavering dedication earned him quiet respect from the public. While he never received the same level of adoration as Diana, his reputation as a reliable and hardworking royal grew steadily. He carved out a less glamorous but equally important role by valuing service over showmanship, a trait he admired in his father, Prince Philip. Edward sought to honor his father's legacy in both his work and personal life. Meanwhile, Diana's influence remained a constant presence in the narrative of the royal family. Her emphasis on emotional authenticity and direct engagement with the public continued to inspire younger royals, particularly her sons, William and Harry. Initially, Edward may have viewed the shift toward a more personalized style of royal service as conflicting with his values. However, over time, he adapted without compromising his principles. His increased involvement in community-based projects and various causes signaled a subtle but meaningful evolution in his approach, reflecting his ability to embrace change while staying true to his beliefs. The complicated history of the royal family is reflected in how Edward adheres to tradition while Diana sought to modernize it. Edward's quiet efforts have been equally important in preserving the monarchy's strength, even though Diana's legacy often overshadows those of her contemporaries. Edward's steady presence serves as a crucial balance, demonstrating that the monarchy can endure both successes and failures. Over time, Edward likely contemplated the complexities of this period. Though he has spoken little about Diana publicly, his actions reveal his understanding of her impact on the royal family. His focus remains on maintaining the institution's stability while embracing gradual change, highlighting the difficulty of balancing these two objectives. Edward's journey exemplifies how the monarchy can evolve while remaining true to its traditions, a dynamic that will continue to shape its future. During Diana's time in the royal family, significant changes occurred both publicly and privately. For Edward, her influence serves as a reminder of the challenges and opportunities inherent in navigating such a unique and complex institution. Despite their contrasting approaches to royal life, both Edward and Diana have left lasting marks on the monarchy, ensuring its narrative remains compelling and diverse. Over time, the lives of Princess Diana and Prince Edward have become intertwined, reflecting the evolution of the monarchy. Diana's influence is still felt in how the royal family engages with the public and balances personal authenticity with institutional duty. For Edward, this has meant finding his place in a family forever shaped by her while staying true to the values that have guided him throughout his life. In recent years, Edward's quiet strength has become a defining aspect of his role. While other members of the royal family have faced public scrutiny due to personal issues or scandals, Edward has remained focused on his duties. His consistent dedication has made him a stabilizing force in the kingdom, especially during challenging times. This commitment aligns with the values upheld by his parents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, who prioritized service and tradition. Meanwhile, Diana's influence continues to resonate, particularly through the efforts of her sons, Princes William and Harry. Their dedication to mental health advocacy, environmental conservation, and community involvement reflects the values Diana championed during her life. Initially, these shifts in royal conduct might have appeared to conflict with tradition, but they highlight the monarchy's ability to adapt while honoring its legacy. Edward holds dear the ideals of the past, yet he has found ways to balance these values with the changes of modernity. Over time, he has worked to ensure that the essence of tradition is not lost in the pursuit of progress. The enduring contrast between Princess Diana's outgoing personality and Edward's quieter demeanor highlights the persistent tensions within the royal family. Diana's approach brought a sense of friendliness and accessibility to the monarchy, while Edward's steadfastness has underscored the importance of tradition and consistency. Together, these qualities have helped the institution navigate challenging times and demonstrate how it might continue evolving in the future. In recent years, Edward has shown a unique ability to merge seemingly opposing ideals. His dedication to helping others is evident through his ongoing involvement in the Duke of Edinburgh's award program and his support for arts and education-related charities. At the same time, his hands-on approach to these causes reflects a style reminiscent of Diana's, emphasizing personal engagement. This shift in Edward's public life signifies his understanding of the need for balance within the monarchy. The evolving perception of the royal family serves as a testament to Diana's enduring legacy and Edward's efforts to adapt, with more people recognizing their hard work to stay relevant in changing times. Edward has had to navigate the delicate task of respecting the example set by his parents while helping the institution they cherished to grow. It's a challenging role, but one he approaches with humility and determination. Princess Diana's memory remains a powerful influence within the royal family, serving both as a symbol of change and a reminder of life's complexities. For Edward, her legacy is both a challenge and an opportunity, prompting him to reflect on the lessons of the past and plan a future that harmonizes tradition and progress. Their shared impact highlights how both identities will remain integral to the royal family's evolution. In quieter moments, Edward likely reflects deeply on the events of the past, particularly those surrounding Diana's life and death and the transformations they sparked within the monarchy. These memories and their lasting effects are an inextricable part of his story, underscoring the significance of balance, legacy, and the interplay of tradition and change in shaping the royal family's future. Still, Edward has been a stable figure throughout it all, representing the organization he works for in a quiet way. Royal life is very complicated, as shown by how Edward and Diana's memories interact with each other. Their ways of doing things were not always the same, but they both tried to deal with the problems of their jobs in ways that were true to who they were as people. Diana's openness about her feelings and Edward's quiet devotion may seem like opposites, but together they show how complex the monarchy is. For the monarchy to last, it needs both new ideas and old ones to keep going. Edward's place as a link between tradition and modernity is becoming more and more important as the royal family continues to change with the times. The monarchy can move forward because he can respect the values of the past while also supporting the changes that people like Diana have brought about. Not only does the job take patience and wisdom, but also a deep understanding of what it means to serve. Edward has shown this quality many times over the course of his life. Diana's life and legacy will change people for a long time, while Edward's accomplishments show a quieter but just as important kind of strength. Their stories show how hard it is to be true to yourself while also doing what you're supposed to do. This is a problem that defines both the monarchy and the lives of those who serve it. Edward has been looking for balance all his life, and it has shaped both his journey and the impact he will leave behind.